Hello everyone, I am Rochelle. I am the provider consultant for Doctors ACO. I cover the Athens area. Unfortunately, Amy is not able to join us tonight. She had to have surgery, not an emergent surgery, but an elective surgery done yesterday. She actually had LASIK done. So I am graciously filling in for her tonight. So far we have about 30 attendants. Hopefully more join as we get going. But really quickly, the main focus of our webinar tonight will be what steps and documentation is needed to get the forgiveness of the PPP loans. And so with that, we have Ryan here. He is the Senior Vice President of Pinnacle Bank. We also have on the call Dr. Nilaguru. He is the founder of Quantum Bank. And then we also have Brian, who is the CEO of Quantum Bank. And tonight they're going to be able to address some of your questions that you may have, as well as give some, highlights and tips as what they've seen over the past few weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Agarwal, who will go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you all. Thank you all of you joining us again, and thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dr. Nilaguru and Ryan Hammock, and to help us out. I know when this whole thing started, I knew we were going to have problems, and a lot of times this SBA didn't give the direction, and our friend couldn't tell us what to do. And a lot of time the rule can change, but we had so solid friends. Dr. Nilaguru continued change the form, and he continued to help us how to get everybody into line. Whoever got in line got the money. Who didn't get in line, they got later. They got the money, but they both have done a great job. So I would like to summarize their experience, Dr. Nilaguru, and then we'll ask Ryan to tell us what they have done in last 8 weeks. Dr. Nilaguru, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this opportunity. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Nilaguru, Chairman of the Quantum National Bank. I'm also glad to say I've been a member of the ACO until I retired a couple of years ago and had a great experience with the ACO. Got some good checks on an annual basis from the ACO. And I want to introduce Brian Cohen, our CEO, who is the man in the trenches who has been working extremely hard, spent countless hours in making this happen. Him and his team have done a phenomenal job of approving countless amount of loans in the last month or so. Before I hand it over to him, I want to say a couple of words. Whatever we say is not a legal advice or a tax advice. Please do contact your tax advisor as well as the CPA for the final guidelines. And some of them are still coming out on a daily basis or so, and they keep changing. And please keep a segregated account for the funds you receive. That way, in case you are audited 2 years from now, that you have a chain of that you can show the regulators, if you're audited, how the money came and how you spent it. That way, it's easy to prove at the time rather than scrambling at the last minute to prove. So that's very important. And for those of you who have not applied yet, please apply, still the money is available. And please tell your friends, colleagues who has not applied or has not gotten the money, we'll be glad to help them. And typically, if you give us the application in the morning, we'll get the approval by evening time. So with that, I will have Brian introduce himself before we go on. Brian?
Good evening, everybody. So I'm going to get focused here on some of the details. I know people that have already received their PPP money are wondering about. As as a lender, we are very much waiting for additional guidance from SBA/Treasury Department. There have been, unfounded rumors of additional guidance coming out, which we honestly have not received. So effectively, the best guess that we have of what the expectations
Brian, we're not hearing very well. Everybody
are
hearing Brian well, or I'm making it up?
Yeah, we can't. He's breaking up.
We are.
Yes, you're breaking
still
up, Brian.
expecting additional guidance. One thing I would caution you is a lot of attorneys, as well as their accountants, to enlist. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
You're still breaking
Hello?
up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now much better.
Yes, much better.
Okay, I will. Okay, I don't know what was going on there. So did you hear anything I said before?
Let's summarize that again.
Okay, so we are still waiting for additional guidance from SBA. We have not gotten the guidance. I think we as a bank need to have the guidance to be able to convey to our customers exactly what we can do. So I think you all are looking for the same guidance that we are to be able to convey the information to you. A couple of things that I think are very important, however, before we even get going. First of all, and we are actually doing this as a bank because the rules keep changing, I would encourage anybody who has already received a PPP money to write a state of mind statement. Why did you take the money? Did you need the money? Were there any concerns you had about your business at that time? There is some concern that the SBA/Treasury Department might wonder if people that didn't really need money took money. So I would again encourage everyone to do a state of mind statement so that you have that in history. The other thing, and Dr. Neal already mentioned it, is please be very careful in keeping your money separate. You need to have great documentation. This is going to be a document your file exercise. And if you have all of the money coming in and out of one account, you have the best chance of being able to communicate the accurate information that you need. The other thing that I wanted to convey is there are very specific timelines. That said, there is still talk SBA may change the timelines. But one of the very important things to focus on is from the day you receive the money, you have 56 days. That's 8 weeks that are 7-day weeks. You have 56 days to spend the money. Being that this is a banking exercise, our view is you are spending the money on an accrual basis, not a cash basis. Banking works on an accrual basis. So for those of you who are doing that already, great. For those of you who are not, I would encourage you to try to keep your records again on an accrual basis. You then have 60 days after that 56 days to get your bank to submit to the SBA your forgiveness. So at 116 days after you receive that money, you're going to need to have come to a consensus with your bank, because your bank is going to be sending documentation to SBA letting them know that the bank is recommending forgiveness. The bank is very motivated to forgive the loan as long as you have the documentation. But everybody needed some level of documentation at the beginning to get your loan. If you used Quantum, hopefully you understood what we expected. If you used Pinnacle, I assume the same. If you use some other bank, please talk to your banker and try to get a feeling for what they are expecting of you. For those of you who got a loan from a big bank, you might have a problem in trying to get good communications, because the big banks has struggled in this whole process, and their communication, we are generally hearing from people, is a little more challenging, but you're going to have to rely on their process. And that's just the reality of it. Starting at 180 days after you initially got the money, you will have to start making payments on it if the whole loan didn't get forgiven, and the loan, in fact, has to be paid off within 2 years. So kindly, we got a list of questions, and I'll address some of those later. But one thing I did want to comment, and it's been mentioned already, we are still doing PPP loans. A lot of the big banks are not. I don't know if Pinnacle is continuing. A lot of community banks are. A lot of them have stopped. We have done about 900 PPP loans, representing approximately $80 million. And it's what's kind of become interesting is a lot of people have gotten a little scared off because of the Treasury Department talking about making sure that you didn't have alternate sources of liquidity. So the demand overall has dropped for PP loans. Quantum is still processing them on a daily basis. For those people in need, you can still get a loan from Quantum. You can submit in the morning, and as has already been mentioned, you could have the loan that day. One thing, though, that I do want to make sure everybody knows is there's been a series of information that's come out from SBA that has been, if you did not need the money, you're supposed to return it to SBA and talk to your bank. They initially gave people until May the 7th. Now they've extended that until May the 14th. At Quantum, of our 900 loans, we have had 4 people return the money and decide they really did not need the money. So I would say that's a tiny amount, but some people have. So if you have any questions on that topic,
Brian,
also please speak with your bank.
Brian,
Yes.
Any of them, 4 people who returned, any of them physicians? These are all non.
No, none of them were physicians. Interestingly enough, of those 4, 3 were attorneys who had a reduction in business, but they were concerned that they did have basically cash in their practice, and they did have current liquidity, and they did have a fear. We have not had one doctor who has turned around and sent the money back. We have had a few people who thought they did not have a loan from a big bank, and then we discovered during the funding process that they did have a loan from their big bank. Their big bank did not tell them that they had gotten a loan. I did find out today what happened is if you were with a Chase or a Wells Fargo, they were submitting the loans without your tax ID number. So you may have been approved and they did not communicate to SBA using a tax ID number. As a banker, I have no clue how they were able to do that. I know that's like the first thing we have to put in when we're getting an approval through SBA, but I guess it was the Treasury trying to push a lot of loans through all at one time. So that may have happened. We are still having some people that we are processing loans for that have been approved by a big bank even a week or 2 ago that had no clue they were approved. And they're having to then call their big bank and say, what's up, Quantum couldn't get me the loan. So there is still a pretty significant amount of confusion on that end.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Okay, let me Brian, could you tell us your experience, what you've done in the last 8 weeks?
Sure, and just thank you, Brian and Dr. Neelaguru. I'm not going to echo what you said too much, but I agree with what you were saying, and also Dr. Neelaguru said it very well at the start of the call that we cannot provide tax advice or legal advice for you. Touching on what Brian was talking about, the community banks versus the big banks, we've ran into the exact same experience that he has seen and Quantum Bank has seen. And we've been able to be blessed to help a tremendous number of clients. During this period at Pinnacle Bank, we funded 1,002 loans through end of day yesterday for just under $107 million. And it's really been nice to be able to help those nearly 15,000 employees. And I see some very familiar names on this broadcast. So thank you for those of you who trusted us to be able to help. And there are a good number of questions that were sent out beforehand. I know we'll touch on those here in just a moment. And one of the things that I will echo that Brian mentioned is, I know they called it a state of mind statement. We've been recommending to clients that they either do a board resolution or something just acknowledging their position, their thought process, and then also their access to liquidity or capital as they see it. So that is something that we have been recommending, and also been recommending that that our clients and new clients stay up to date on the SBA PPP Frequently Asked Questions document, which the SBA and Treasury Department have been updating regularly. If you don't have a link to that, we'll make sure that one is sent out. Don't just download the document. Make sure you save the link, because it is an active document that the SBA is continuing to update, and that's a place where we and other bankers are going to be able to get these SBA updates. So, thank you, Dr. Agarwal.
Is there anybody in the audience who has not got PPP loan? They applied for it but did not get it. Can you raise your hand or speak up? Come on up. And you know how to use the chat function. Please do that. So let me tell you my experience, and then people can come to other things. So basically, when we applied with Ryan, you know, Dr. Nilaguru's clients start getting money, and they're calling me, listen, I got money already. And Ryan hasn't even called us. So I said, maybe we didn't get the right candidate, a right person bank for us. So, but everything worked out great. And he really, the minute we got the money, he told us how to start collecting data, how to get it loan forgiveness. So we have planned for 8 weeks payroll, and we start collecting the documents where the money go, because we have planned to not to give any single pie back to the Uncle Sam. So I want everybody to start thinking like that this last paycheck you did, you know, how much of that money will be forgiven. And if you have not documented that, please look into and call the banker, see have you documented properly or not. And this will be the time to do the next paycheck. Next paycheck will be another big event. So, and then after that, there's only 2 more weeks to correct the problem, you know. So I would say, Lou, do you have any comment to tell us about how to prepare us to show our document to the banker? Lou, you can unmute and tell us your advice. I think it's muted. Okay.
Can you hear me clearly? Very good. I hear an echo. Am I echoing?
You're doing good.
Okay. I think it's very important that you work with your CPA and making sure that your accounting is straight on this and that they understand the rules. I think that if you do that, you'll with all of the very good advice that we've heard this evening from Quantum and Pinnacle. I have another question though. As you know, HHS has 2 tranches of loans, the 50 billion in total, 30 billion and a 20 billion. Has anybody received any money from the second tranche?
Does everybody know what he's talking about?
Yeah, I did not get. I got the first one, but the second one, I'm still waiting.
You're still waiting?
Yes.
And we're still waiting too. Anybody got it? Anybody? I think the one person who's going to get first is Raj. Raj, have you got the money yet?
No, partner. I haven't got it yet.
So we're following him.
All right.
So if he got the money, we're going to have the money. So this.
by the
Okay,
way,
I feel better. I thought I was the only one that didn't get it. Right?
I mean, the
Very
only
good.
physician
Thank you
who
for putting
returned
this
money
together.
of
Very
PPP.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. We're gonna open this thing. Please, I'm gonna start asking questions, and then some of the questions we have already sent to the bankers. They will take the questions. So first question I had is there is a lot of darkness. SBA has not told the banker what to look for, what to forgive for, and basically, so for asking us to them, how to do what to do is very difficult to do. So question here is how to prepare yourself to forgive about $1 million in a paycheck payment plan and do the right thing from this darkness. So, Dr. Neil or Ryan, you want to take that, and then we follow through, Brian?
Sure. So this is Ryan from Pinnacle, and touching on what Dr. Agarwal asked, what we're recommending is you save all your payroll files. Also, aligning with what Brian mentioned earlier, we're treating it as an accrual basis, not a cash basis. Just meaning it will be as it will start on the day that the loan is funded, not backdating it, meaning a payroll file. So say that you received your funding on May 1st and you did a payroll on May 3rd. That payroll on May 3rd may include monies owed from April. So there's a bad reverb. Is anybody else hearing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. So we're recommending you hang on to your payroll files. And then also with Pinnacle Bank, we're not going to start the forgiveness process unless the SBA changes their procedures until after June 30th. Part of what we believe will be required is your Q2 941 to be able to confirm the number of employees as of June 30th, which was something that was written up in the interim final rule. So payroll files, 941 for Q2, and then for those of you that are paying for your leases, rent, utilities, follow the same accrual basis and not cash basis accounting to where we can tie back to your power bill, gas bill, phone bills, etc. And for those leases, we do expect that we'll need a copy of the lease agreement. But again, it's the SBA has not issued a final rule on exactly what will be needed.
So what I'm saying, like guy like me who don't understand much of so is the accountant who's going to help me, or you going to help me? The banker going to help me? Who's going to help me?
From a quantum perspective, we are going to ask you for documentation to make sure that it falls inside of the documentation that is required. However, ultimately, it is your responsibility to make sure the documentation is correct. And when you initially signed all of the documents and the note, it was very clear from SBA that ultimately the bank is relying on your information. We're going to do, as I think Ryan also described, kind of a high level information gathering, but from a detail perspective, it is the responsibility of the borrower.
The question I was asking, like 2 weeks gone now, the end of May, I want documents sent to you so you can check his house, whether I'm doing the right thing or not, what else I need to do. Is that possible? Or to other friends to send it to you, Dr. Neil? Or you want to see at the end of the 2 weeks, then you tell us what you need.
Once you have all the guidelines, we can guide you a whole lot better. We can tell you, people who got a loan from us, what kind of documents we expect. That way you can turn to your payroll people and CPA to get documents and then forward it to the banker.
But from a very high level, simple perspective, to get your payroll protection program loan, you are required to submit documentation to the bank. From a quantum perspective, and I'm going to assume this is similar with Pinnacle and Ryan, that's the same kind of documentation that we're going to need to deal with on the forgiveness side. So if you are that organized and you are that on top of it, I'm going to bet you are in awesome condition when that 8-week period ends.
So let me ask you a question from the chat.
Brian, can you go on camera? We can't see you, Brian.
You can't see me?
No, you can go on camera. You have to unclick the camera.
Yeah, no, it says I'm on. Let me turn it off and then I'll turn it back on.
Okay, all right.
Really quickly, can everybody that has a question, can you please type them into the chat function? Then that way we'll be able to have Ryan, Brian, and Dr. Neil answer those. We do have a few questions in the chat function right now. I'm going to go ahead and have Ryan address those.
I don't have a chat function on my
So one of the question is from Dr. Parani that she provide long-term health insurance to employee free of charge, and she used that expense in the expense count. Long-term disability and life insurance to employee at no cost. Can she use that payroll expense or the 25% expense? Anybody want to take that question?
Yeah, I have not seen long-term disability and life insurance to the employee included in any of the calculations at this point in time. Brian, Dr. Neil LaGrue, have you seen anything different?
Yeah, I have not seen, all the guidelines I have read has not mentioned anything about the insurance plans, either long-term or,
Beyond regular health benefits, we have not seen that either.
I have a question. When does the 56 days start? The date of your closing, or the date you pick up the check, or the date you deposit it?
The date, well, that's a really good question, but from a quantum perspective, we either deposit it in your account, it would be that day, we wire it, and it would be that day, or we issue a cashier's check, and it would be the day that the cashier's check was issued. And we're very focused on the timeline. Initially, the guideline was that the bank needed to fund the loan within 10 days. Kind of, again, looking back, initially it was very hard for us to get things funded in 10 days because the guidelines were changing up to 7, 8, 9 days. Now we're funding the day that we make the loan. But it is the day the money went into your account. And also on that chat function, I'm not seeing the questions. I'm seeing them, they pop up at the top. But from a utilities end, there's not total clarity on what utilities are, but definitely, gas, electric, water. In some of the guidance, they specifically talk about cell phone bills, which to us was not a utility, but there is some guidance that is included. Sanitation. You're going to need to speak with your lender to see what your lender's position is at the time that you are getting forgiveness, because this is an area where we would expect to get more clarification. We do expect utilities to be a very relatively broad guideline, but again, we do not have a lot of detail yet.
Hey, Subodh, can you make maybe your staff put Brian on the camera? Is it blocked? Can you unblock?
Okay, we do that. Okay, so we gonna let's do that.
Still I can't see him.
I think he's drinking wine and he don't want to tell everybody that he's drinking.
Hey,
That's
man,
why the video is off. That's okay. I drink wine too, so I drink. I tell everybody I'm drinking.
Brian, you want to log out and then log back on.
Yeah, no, I did that already because at least you can hear me now. I even powdered the top of my head.
Okay.
I saw a question about condo association fees. That when we have done calculations, we were including those. Again, you're gonna need to talk to your banker to make sure that they have sound advice. One of the other questions, and this came up in the whole initial process, is do you have to spend your do you have to bring back the same furloughed individuals? And the answer to that question is all of the guidance is tied to FTEs, full-time equivalents. So if you hire somebody back, as long as it's a person, that's fine. It doesn't have to be that same exact person. But you do need to get full forgiveness. You do need to end up with the same number of FTEs as you did before all of this craziness started.
And Brian, I was going to add one thing on that.
Okay,
there
we
was
got Brian
one
back.
exception.
We got him back. That's great.
If I can add one thing to what Brian was mentioning, and that gets to, and it's something I've heard from a number of our borrowers, is they can't get their employees to come back to work. So some of them that they have furloughed are saying, I'm making more money on unemployment, or I'm just not prepared to come back, and they're refusing the offer to come back. In the frequently asked questions, the SBA did provide clarity that the borrower would not be penalized should their employee refuse to come back to work. The offer to come back would have to be written, and then the employer would have to document that refusal as well. And for those of you that are going to look, that's question 40 in the PPP frequently asked questions document, and we have gotten that question a lot.
And you may want to let those employees.
The question from Dr. Aplan, what are you talking about? Third payment.
Right.
Implication on third. Yes.
I want to add something to what Jay said. In case the employee refuses to come back, you have documented that. Probably they should also know that they may not be eligible for the unemployment benefit if they refuse the offer of the employment to come back.
So that's very, very good question. Lot of patients, lot of employee, they rather have unemployment and stay home. And you're going to see some of those in your practice. So now you know how to handle that. The question Dr. Aplan asked for, what is the third payment? Third payment, I think Dr. Nilaguru, tell us about the third payment. He's talking about the Medicare third payment.
Yeah, I'm not equipped to answer that because that's not a banking question.
Okay, third payment, but I think he's asking for the Medicare distributing $50 billion, and that depends upon how much you lost. And that they were asking from everybody to send application, and Raj Bansal and me, we have sent that to them, suggesting we lost a lot of money, and none of us got the money so far. So if you have not applied for that, I think there is still room for it. You can apply for it. If you go to the website, Medicare website, it's available. And if you don't find it, just call Dawn and she can tell you how to get that. Okay, so next question is everybody's asking, please give us a list of the document the bank going to need. Is there any possibility that you can create a list of documents and we can distribute to all our ACM members?
I think once the final guidelines come, that will be the time. And
okay, so that's a good answer. So we will send you the list of the documents, but not until we get clarity. They're in the darkness, not clear yet.
And I think that it ties to the reality that this continues to be a moving target, and it would not be surprising that at the very last minute there's another curveball thrown that requires other documents or other information. So if you have a hard set of information that you think once you complete it, it's right and you're done, it's probably a fallacy.
Very good.
There may also be some variability from bank to bank, what they consider their side of what they need. That may vary from bank to bank. So best thing is to approach your bank and ask them what's the right documents they need.
Okay, very good. So you are our bank. So I think you and Pinnacle are the majority of the bank. So we will probably, if we can give us a list, once clarity comes up, we distribute that to the all our members, and hopefully they stay on top of it. The next question, which is very good question, I think came from audience, is if one employee leave and they hire another employee, or they hire instead of 2 employee, now the expense they did on those employee, does it counted as a forgiveness loan.
Ryan?
Yes. Yeah, it's okay to hire more than you started with. That's fine. It's you need to get to the same number or more is fine.
So now this is the time to hire. So if you have left money which you cannot cover for your payroll, you better hire somebody, or you hire somebody from your house, but hire somebody to able to pay able to show that you're hiring people and paying in the payroll. Very good.
Please make sure that it's a very legitimate employment and it's not going to last for a month or two, so that if the feds were to come back and question, you are able to prove that it's all a normal, reasonable, necessary employment.
If we had part-time people before, do we have to just say we have them work the same amount of hours, or do we have to have full-time people in order to get this?
It all ties to your FTEs when you initially received the loan. So you're good if you had a part-time person before and you have a part-time person at the end of the process. You're good. And the other thing,
we had 2 part-time people, and then one of the ladies died, so we were down to 1. So I can hire somebody, but I didn't know if I had to hire somebody full-time in order to get the benefit, or if I could hire somebody part-time.
No, you can hire somebody part-time.
Yeah, and remember also that, and this has actually been confusing for Quantum. Initially, when we inputted the loans, and we're still required to list exactly how much was going to go to payroll and how much to utilities. As it's sorted out, the guidance has been that 75% has to go to payroll and 25% goes to utilities. So with that said, since the actual amount of money that was used to calculate your loan was 2.5 times your payroll for that 8-week period, if you are good at maximizing your utility piece, your 25% to utility piece, you should be in good shape. That I think some of the people that are running numbers are finding that's giving them a little bit of flexibility to make sure that they reach that 100% money that you initially received.
So it doesn't matter if they're full-time or part-time?
No.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
So that's very clear. Like you can, if employee left, you can hire some more people. You can hire more than people you had before, and then you can hire full-time or part-time. That's great. And the list of the documents, we will collect all that and we send it to you, to all members. Dr. says your member will get that as soon as we get clarity about that.
But again, you did have to prepare documents when you got the loan initially. So I would strongly encourage that you start with that. I'm sure with more information, especially after you talk to your accountant or other advisors, you'll start to think, oh, I should have included, this piece of information or that piece of information. But the loan amount was calculated based on payroll. So, just be careful to make sure that you're generating all of the same kind of reports and information.
And also keep in mind, you don't have to spend 25% on utilities and rent, because we have come across some companies where they are able to spend 100% of the money on payroll. The minimum amount that you can spend is 75% on payroll.
That's a good point.
And Dr. Agarwal, I was going to touch, I see Dr. DePalma just asked a quick question about if an employee refuses to come back to work, will unemployment stop at that time? And I was just going to read something verbatim from the SBA. It just says, employees and employers should be aware that employees who reject offers of reemployment may forfeit eligibility for continued unemployment compensation. And the thing I focus on is may. that is not completely set in stone based on the FAQs from the SBA.
It's a great point, Ryan, and I think what we're seeing employers.
So that's very complex situation.
It is, but the reality is the word is out, and people are electing to not come back in droves. And it's not just in your industry; it's especially big in the hospitality and retail worlds, and it's a real unfortunate byproduct of these different programs colliding and not really being coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
So we will put all these questions on table. I mean, FAQ, you will get it from us, from Amy and Rochelle, and to all members. And all the questions being asked in the chat, we will put that all together and get the answer to you. But I think during this time, it's a very difficult time. Things not going to be normal for at least next 12 to 18 months. So we got to plan. We got to plan the expenses. You got to at least make sure you're earning enough money to pay your bill before. It's very important, especially in a large practice or a specialty practice, and make sure you continue to do your telemedicine. And if you need any help, you call ACO office and they can help you with that.
But this, I just saw a question, and this just hits the nail on the head. For anything we say today is to our best knowledge today, because it could all change in a week or two, or there's other specific facts. There was a question about, what do I do if I have an employee that effectively was misconduct? I would say you would terminate under normal circumstances. How do you deal with that situation where you have a bad employee that you terminate because they do a bad job? And do you still have to maintain that same level of FTEs? I think based on what we know, my guess is the answer is you still have to maintain your same level of FTEs. I don't think there's any specific guidance as to how it relates to having a poor employee, during this period. But there are so many details and complications in this process that are yet to be, honed in on.
I have another question. Rent, does that mean a mortgage or rent? What if you have a mortgage on your building? Would that be covered?
Either.
Mortgage is covered.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? When you say payroll, if a practice has an IRA plan for the employees on accrued basis for that period of 8 weeks, is that part of the equation too or not?
We're using a retirement plan where this all relates back to employer contributions. So if the employee contributed, that's their cost. If there was an employer contribution, that is in part of our calculation. Is that the same for you, Ryan?
Yes, it is. And just make sure you're not double counting, because there were some people that accidentally were double counting when they were getting their retirement contribution statements from their plan administrators. So they were including both the employee and the employer portion, where it should just be the employer portion.
Like, for example, in our practice, we have only employer contributed plan. So we wouldn't force the employees to contribute anything. That will be part of the payroll expense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think I would like at least 5 minutes each can tell us about this second loan. This is called economical injury disaster loan. How do we get that money? $2 million. Go ahead, Brian, tell us.
Get in line, man. That's about all I can tell you. I think from what we understand, the fund has no money in it anymore. The ability to communicate with people at SBA about it is pretty much is nil at this point. So we're expecting perhaps that there'll be more money put into it, but there seems to be a long line of people that are waiting for it. Have you heard anything different, Ryan?
Nothing different.
Very good. So do you think we solved all the questions? We answered all the questions, or anybody has anything? Any question is a good question.
So,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead.
this is Raj.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
In the event when you get your PPP loan and you happen to actually use it for the right reason, well in advance of the 3 months, can we start the process for loan forgiveness immediately, or we got to wait till 3 months?
Well, remember, it's 8 weeks, so it's 56 days, which is really critical. I mean, that is set in stone. It's 7-week period. So don't be planning on 3 months. Be planning on those 56 days after the money is funded into your account. And we will not start the forgiveness process until those 56 days are over. I think, we're considering, it sounded like Pinnacle already decided that they would not go through the forgiveness process until after the second quarter, because a lot of reports can be auto-generated by especially the payroll providers. We had anticipated starting the payroll process before, but I can honestly say what Ryan said kind of makes some sense. So, we don't want to do it wrong. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is you don't want to do it wrong, and your banker doesn't want to do it wrong, because it is set up and designed as a grant. And if you did everything correctly, it should all be forgiven, and we want to make sure to accommodate those requests.
So when should we start doing this? On a monthly basis, submit papers to the bank, or should we wait till the end of the 56 weeks or 56 days, the 8 weeks period?
Yeah, we will. We will not accept any documentation until after your 56 days has expired, and we'll want it in a package. What we're really waiting for, and SBA has said it's going to come out, and it just absolutely has not come out, is a form and some additional guidance on what the bank and the borrower should expect to have in that package. And we honestly do not have that information yet.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Raj, what I think Raj wanted to know is he should start collecting not on Raj or everybody else who got the money, should start put the ducks in the row, start collecting the data from the day they got the money, and they need to plan that how they're gonna spend all that money.
Yes.
That planning has to occur.
Absolutely.
And the data need to start collecting, and you need to have a Excel sheet. This is the way I'm going to pay the payroll, which is 75% or more, and this is my 25% of my rent and utility. If you don't match it something, you got to plan something to spend that money. If you don't spend that money, then that money will becomes a loan. And if willing to pay back that loan, that's fine with me. But I think at this point, you need to figure out how you're going to spend the money before 56 days over. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, let me mention one other thing that is really important, because this is a loan that is potentially a grant, and there's no personal guarantees. All of that said, it is an SBA loan. And one thing everybody needs to fully understand is if it converts into a loan because it has not been forgiven, you do have to pay it back, even though it is not personally guaranteed. The EIN number that was used to get the loan is liable for the money, and it is a government loan. And for any of you who have ever experienced a government loans have to be paid back. There is no way around that, except for the fact that these are companies. So the company potentially would be dissolved. That would be your only way around paying back that loan. So please know, if it converts to a loan, you will have to pay it back.
Good point.
So
Any other
anybody,
questions about?
so
Yeah,
come on. If you have any question, this is the time to ask.
yeah, I have a question. So there was a lot of confusion between the first PPP batch that came out and the second. Two things. One is 1099s are not included in the payroll, correct?
Correct.
If we have a nurse practitioner, we cannot include them in.
Right. If it's a 1099, you cannot. If it's a W2, you can.
So let me interrupt for a second. It should not have been included in the first round either.
Correct.
So we had loans that we had approved with 1099 income because the guidance was very muddy, and we pulled all of those applications and recalculated it without the 1099 income. So if you got a loan in part based on 1099 income, I think this is where that, if you got the loan very quickly and you got it funded very quickly, make sure you had your statement of, why you got the loan, the information that you had, because ultimately that did not comply with the regulations.
The second question I have is the rent. If we have two office locations, can we use either or for the rent for the 25% if we are trying to balance that out?
I mean, it doesn't specify. It just says rent paid. So so long as there is a lease agreement that was signed prior to February 15th of 2020, I don't see why not.
Okay. And the second part of that same question is, one of the buildings that we practice in is owned by a family LLC, where the MD is also a part of the LLC. That's not considered as shady businesses. I want to be clear about that.
I don't think so.
Okay, we have a family LLC that owns the building, and the MD is renting that building and has been renting that ever since. It's not something new. So we are paying rent to the family LLC. And the doctor, who is the main owner of the practice, is also owner of the family LLC. That is okay to write off that portion of the rent.
I would think that is a legitimate business if it was existence.
Yeah, it's been in existence ever since. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, that's a great question, but I absolutely know from a quantum perspective, if you are writing a check to an LLC and there's a valid lease, we are not going to ask about who owns the building that is the who that check is going to. That's just not going to. We're just going to verify that you paid rent and it was valid, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Ryan at Pinnacle, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to want a copy of that lease agreement to confirm it was in force before February 15th. But unless we receive guidance otherwise from the SBA, the intent is to include that.
Okay.
So Dr. Prani has a question here. See, are utility unique to doctor's office covered? Unique to doctor's office, such as supplies for the nuclear cameras, things like that. Are they covered as a utility to unique to doctor's office? The definition of utility, because doctors uses different utility than normal. So are they covered? Dr. Prani, can you come up and tell us what is, clarify your question too, a little bit, what you have in mind?
Yes, so I was talking about like biohazard and paper shredding, and also like equipment rentals that we have, like ultrasound machines, C-arms that we rent. Can we include those things?
The stuffer.
I think so. That's part of the regular payment you have been paying every month for a while, and so that's part of the. If it's a part of the loan payment, yes. On the legitimate monthly expenses, probably not part of the payroll, but the 25% that would be included. Jay, do you feel otherwise?
Hey, this is Ryan, and we've been excluding the equipment rentals. Just following I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I would be very cautious about leased equipment.
Yeah.
And things like a shredder or biohazard, they do fall out of what is seen in other businesses, and they clearly are a valid part of having a medical practice. But the guidance refers to utilities and rent or mortgage. It doesn't go to leased equipment or special uses in certain industries.
Okay.
Because we did so much.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you might have covered this before. When we talk of payroll, is it employees' net pay, or is it including his taxes, or including employers' taxes also?
Gross pay.
And it's the gross pay, as Ryan said, and the employer paid taxes and the employer paid benefits.
Wonderful. Sounds good.
All right. Any other questions? We have another 4 minutes left.
Yes. When you said, like Mrs. Pirani asked about having a family LLC to which we pay rent each month, is a rental contract essential, or a tax return would suffice, where we are showing so much money is moved as rent towards the LLC, the property LLC?
Ryan?
Everything I've seen is a lease agreement signed prior to February 15th. Let me see. I can go back through and look a little bit more. Brian, do you have a firm answer on that?
I don't, but I think you're describing a situation whereby a historic arrangement could be documented by those parties, and it would probably be good to go ahead and do it as opposed to trying to recreate history at some point in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
I have one question. When you say employer taxes, does that include only the unemployment, the SUTA, or are you also including the payroll taxes and the federal taxes?
Colleague of his?
Yeah, on our side, we're only looking at the state unemployment tax that the employer pays.
Correct, just the state.
I don't know how we perceive them greatly.
And for those of you who have used a payroll service, almost all the payroll service companies, they produce the document lickety split that is compliant to the PPP program.
If there are no other question, I would give about 5 minutes each. Can you summarize, Dr. Neil and Ryan and Brian, and see your guidance for next 8 weeks? And maybe we might, and anybody has difficulty, please connect with them. If you haven't got the money, please call them. They will help you. So starting with you, Dr. Neil.
I think what we know today is what we know today. We do not have the final guidelines. We can only go by the information we have today. So once we get the final guidelines, it may change from the fact that we laid out today. Number two, still there's plenty of money out available there. We are spending approximately about $2 billion a day. So we encourage everybody, if you have not applied, if your friends that you know of have not applied, and this is the time to take advantage of the grant. So, and when the final guidelines are available, then I think your banker should be able to help you, and that's a very easy thing. I'm done. Brian?
I think the biggest thing to add would be this is a moving target. It might be good to have another conversation in a couple of weeks when hopefully there's some additional guidance. We will get to Amy any other information that we have. And I would really go back to, for those of you who came in later, a couple of things that we talked about at the very beginning. Make sure that you have in my mind, a segregated account so that you can be keeping up with exactly how the money is being spent. For those of you who have one account, that's great. If you're using multiple accounts, have a darn good spreadsheet and great documentation. Make sure to have a statement of mind as to why you got the money, what you're using the money for, so that if anybody asks you in a year or 2 or 3 when they show up at your office, you know exactly what it is that they are asking for. Remember that the bank that you got the loan is ultimately the bank that you need to work with on the forgiveness process. And please be kind to Quantum and to Pinnacle, because we're going to have a lot of loans coming at us all at the same time that we're going to be trying to work with you on maximizing your forgiveness. And it sounds like both Pinnacle and Quantum are both still in the business of making PPP loans. So if you are interested in one, please contact Ryan. If you would like to work with Quantum, we have a dedicated email address of ppp@quantumbank.com, and that will take you to somebody, actually our senior lender, who is responsible for coordinating all of those loans. Thank you.
Going, Ryan.
Great. Well said, Brian. Thank you. And yes, we are still taking applications, whether it's a physician or a non-physician business. So we would love to help you with that. And again, I don't want to be a parrot, so just the same things that Brian mentioned. Make sure you're keeping your records in order. You're staying on top of it throughout this 8-week period through June 30th, so that way you're not trying to go back in and recreate something in the 23rd hour. So thank you.
So let me tell you one thing. Every time I call Brian, Dr. Neil, and Ryan, they respond immediately. So it's amazing that it's been great, stressful situation, but they've been great friend and being available for us, and almost everybody got the money. And so if you don't got the money, please call them up or call me up. Okay, we can go through this, and our plan is to get forgiveness for all the money we got. So get ready, and we have to come back and connect together again in 2-3 weeks. We'll do that. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Neil. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, David. And thank you, Lou. And thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody, to come to this meeting. And we want to make sure that Doctors ACO and Palm Beach ACO and all the independent doctors continue to prosper during this tough time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
If you have
Thank
any
you very much.
questions, please go ahead and email them directly to Amy. Then that way we can get them dispersed out to the appropriate person to answer those. Again, we do thank everybody for taking time out of their night to join us, and we will send out a list of all the questions as well as any information that we get from our speakers. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night.